Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. We're talking about potential wide receiver fantasy football bust for 2020. Excited to dive into this episode. Before I do, guys, make sure you guys interact with the episode. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you consider drafting these guys for fantasy football 2020, or do you consider them a bust as well? I'm going to dive right into this. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Josh Jacobs, and you're listening to the Fantasy Football Counselor.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. We're talking fantasy football busts 2020 at the wide receiver position. Got a list of some wide receivers you may want to be cautious about. That's all I'm saying, guys. Again, I talked about this in my running back episode. I'm going to give you a little bit of narrative and some backstory here. Last year, I had a magazine open, not going to say which magazine. Actually, it was on the front cover. Had a picture of Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Odell Beckham. And again, the mainstream were telling you Le'Veon Bell, top 10 running back, draft him at the end of the first round. Antonio Brown, draft him at the end of the second round. And Odell, again, typical top 5 wide receiver. 3 years, they said, draft Odell, top 5. And I said, be careful of Odell 3 years in a row. And it's a shame, man. I cannot believe this. And it makes my blood boil because Odell right now is sitting as a top 10 wide receiver right now, which is absolutely insane, guys. I cannot believe Odell Beckham is sitting there as a top 10 wide receiver. Don't the sheep ever learn? Now, Landry's sitting as a top 30 right now in the rankings. Why is Landry ranked 30 after he crushed Odell last year in fantasy points? It's absolutely insane. It blows my mind. Again, the point I'm trying to make is I warned you not to draft these guys, and sure enough, they all busted. So again, when I get into these bust videos and give you the warning, I want you guys to have that competitive advantage. I want you guys to think outside the box. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, what the mainstream always tells you, which is copy and paste rankings. These guys finished on top last year. Let's draft them again. It's stupid. It's robotic. It's really, really stupid thinking. I want you guys to think outside the box, and that's how you're going to get the advantage, and that's what you need to do. So let's get to this list, guys. Fantasy football wide receiver bust potential. Before I get into that, again, smash a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know, and get the 16-round draft solution below. The first ever and only video training to help you guys dominate your draft. Stray away from the constituencies. I do a lot of that homework for you guys because I live and breathe this stuff. It's going to give you a massive advantage. All right, so potential bust for 2020 fantasy football. Let's start with the guy I was just talking about, Odell Beckham Jr. I cannot believe he's sitting at top 10 right now. I can't. My mind is blown. But again, not to be surprised with the mainstream. Again, these guys are full of crap. Top 10, Odell, really? You're going to tell people, you're going to deceive people again to say, hey, draft Odell again after you told everybody again last year and the year before that to draft Odell in the first round, and he busted 3 years in a row? How dare you, man? The audacity of the mainstream. And again, it makes my blood boil. Again, because my mission is that you guys win. It's very, very disturbing. It's very upsetting. And yes, Odell could finish top 10, but he could have done it 3 years in a row, and he didn't. He is the most overrated wide receiver in history. That's it, bottom line. Most overrated wide receiver in NFL history is Odell. Stay the hell away from him. He is my first potential bust yet again. I cannot believe he's sitting top 10 on the fantasy football consensus rankings. These guys should be out of business. And don't be surprised. The counselor's taking over this year. People are going to wake up, okay? The other one here I want to talk about, actually it's a 1-2 combo here that could potentially bust, is Evans and Godwin. Now, the mainstream are having these guys sit at 6 and 7, which is pathetic. Now, the reason they're doing this is this. They're very confused and conflicted because, again, Chris Godwin finished second last year amongst wide receivers. Evans finished 15th. And what the consensus are doing is they're trying to play it safe. They're like, okay, we got to put Evans in here because he's technically the wide receiver one. He's better receiver. But we also don't want to push Godwin out of the top 10 because he finished second. We're scared. We don't want to. Listen, guys, when was the last time Brady had 2 top wide receivers finish in the top 10? Crickets. Now, Gronkowski, Edelman, that's very possible, happens, right? They both performed really well. But if both Godwin and Evans both finish in the top 10, that would mean they would need at least around 120 to 130 to 150 targets each. They would have to really load up on touchdowns. Now, Godwin had 120 targets for 86 receptions, 9 touchdowns, and a lot of yardage. That would mean that these guys would fully get the volume and that Brady wouldn't throw to his running backs. Understand, last year, guys, Brady threw 95 targets to James White. That was just one running back. He threw a bunch more to the other running backs, and he had 72 receptions, James White did. So maybe Ronald Jones is a beneficiary. Maybe they draft another running back or they bring someone else that's a free agent. By the time of this recording, it's April 13th. Things are going to change after the NFL draft, but Brady throws to running backs. Brady throws to tight ends. That's the bottom line. So things are going to change. Things are going to move. They're going to shift. There's no way I see both Godwin and Evans going to finish in the top 10. It's just not possible. I don't see it mathematically add up. And I said the same thing last year. How can Landry and Odell finish on top? How is Odell going to be a top 5 receiver if Landry's still there? Prior year, going back in 2018, Landry had 149 targets, and he barely finished. I think he finished top 10 barely. How is Odell going to come in? Mathematically, it didn't make sense. And I don't think mathematically it makes sense that both Evans and Godwin finished top 10. It's absolutely ridiculous. Again, the sheep being sheep, it's pathetic, guys. Just pick one of these guys. It's either going to be Evans or Godwin. I'm leaning towards Evans. I think his stock is going to be slightly cheaper to buy than Godwin, predicated on last year, and I think Evans is the guy. And if you look at the history with Brady, he gravitates towards one guy mainly. One guy is really going to be the beneficiary here at wide receiver. I think it's going to be Evans. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but I really think it's going to be Evans. One of these guys is going to be a bust. That's what I'm saying based on their ADP. Again, they could finish both pretty well in the top 20, but based on ADP, they're going to bust. Now, what is the definition of bust? That could be just performing well below their average draft position. That's kind of the definition I use. There's different terminology, but both these guys finishing 6 and 7 is where they're being drafted amongst wide receivers. It's just not going to happen. Next guy here that I think is a potential bust is DJ Moore. He's currently sitting 11th right now amongst the consensus rankings. Now, they've added Teddy Bridgewater. He could air the ball out. Now, everyone's got CMC as the number 1 running back. Again, copying and pasting last year. You know, CMC had 116 receptions. He may still get fed. I see that. He's going to decline a little bit this year. Robbie Anderson's going to be utilized. They may draft another wide receiver. Now, DJ Moore. Okay, one of the main reasons he is so high is because last year he finished 16th. So a lot of people are high on him. They're like, hey, I love DJ Moore. He's going to be a top receiver. They got him at 11. I think that's a little inflated. I think he's kind of a bit of an overrated receiver. Yeah, he could do really well, but having him pretty much top 10 is a major risk. I'm not investing the price in DJ Moore that early. Years to wow me, and I wasn't wowed. Not really excited. So again, he could be a potential bust based on his ADP. Be cautious. All I'm saying, guys, be aware. There's a ton of depth at the wide receiver position. Be cautious. The other guy here, currently sitting number 5 amongst wide receivers that could potentially bust based on ADP is DeAndre Hopkins. Listen, I'll tell you guys. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense. I'm going to pull up some stats here. I'm going to actually take a look at some stats here. Larry Fitzgerald last year was the number 1 receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. He maxed out at 109 targets, 75 receptions, 804 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, there's already talk of the Cardinals possibly drafting another wide receiver. You've got Christian Kirk, you've got Fitzgerald, you've got now Kenyon Drake, and then you're going to have Hopkins and possibly a rookie wide receiver that may be drafted. So again, that's 4 ace wide receivers. Who's going to get the ball? For Hopkins to perform on a top 5 level, he's going to need top 5 targets, right? So last year he had 150 targets. Is he going to get 150 targets based on last year when their number 1 receiver for the Cardinals maxed out at 109 targets and he's still there? Another mathematical problem. I don't believe in my heart of hearts that DeAndre Hopkins is going to finish top 5. Again, Kyler Murray still young, still learning the system. Great talent, tons of upside. Maybe draft Kyler Murray for a high ceiling kind of quarterback. But do I trust DeAndre Hopkins as a top 5 wide receiver? I'm going to say no. Potential bust. Be cautious. Again, I just gave you guys some facts. Number 1 receiver for the Arizona Cardinals last year was Fitzgerald, and he finished 35th amongst wide receivers. Let me just double check this here. Yep, he was definitely, I'm just cross-checking here, the number 1 wide receiver for the Cardinals. He maxed out at 109 targets. I'm looking at the stats. So again, I do not see, now he could gravitate to him. You know, there could be this, you know, epiphany or whatever you want to call it, anomaly type of thing where Kyler just hones in on Hopkins and these two guys just beast out. But I just don't see it. I see that ball being spread around, and that would make DeAndre Hopkins a bust. Again, I try and reinforce everything I say, okay? Next guy here that could be a bust, finished 21st last year amongst wide receivers, You know, he had an okay season, 84 targets, 52 receptions, 8 touchdowns. Now, Tannehill has made some great wide receivers before, pretty good wide receivers. We saw with Landry having good seasons there in Miami with Tannehill. Tannehill and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's the guy I'm talking about. Could potentially bust. Again, I think that he's going to be overdrafted. I love the talent. He could be a total top 10 guy. But just be cautious. That's all I'm saying with this guy. He may be a little inflated, and I haven't seen enough to prove that he is the guy. Okay, so all I'm saying is be cautious. That's all I'm saying. I like A.J. Brown. I love the talent. But just be cautious. That's all I'm saying when it comes to A.J. Brown for 2020 fantasy football. So there you have it, guys. Odell Beckham, Evans or Godwin, DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Brown, potential fantasy football bust. And again, I'm going to do more videos after the draft, but I'm just out here getting some content out for you, getting you guys a feel that, you know, I'm dipping your feet in the water a little bit, getting you guys, you know, into the fantasy football 2020 zone. So again, that is my video on this, my prediction. Be careful. These are your fantasy football bust 2020, potential bust for 2020. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think and smash that thumbs up if you feel that there's some great content here. Smash that thumbs up anyway. I really appreciate it, guys. I'm out here grinding for you guys. And of course, make sure you guys follow on social media at Fantasy Football Counselor on Instagram. I'm on TikTok at Fantasy Football Counselor. I'm everywhere. I'm omnipresent. We're taking over 2020. Thanks, guys, for being here. More great content coming your way. And be cautious with these guys. I'm out.